So hi, I'm Sean Krause, Bureau Chief of Freshwater Fisheries, and I'm going to be the moderator for tonight. It's great to have everybody on this video call. We're excited to share information about some of our fisheries programs and results, and just to kind of brag about the great opportunities that you have, but also to solicit feedback from you, the angling public, to give you that opportunity to provide feedback so we can continue to create programs that hit all the right buttons and improve the fisheries across the state. Let me share the agenda with you. So we started with that video. Going to be some welcome and updates. I think you're going to be real excited about the presentation that Justin Rosema, one of our biologists, is going to give on our cool water species: muskie, walleye, northern pike, hybrid striped bass. Then we're going to hear about some of our freshwater fishing education and R3 initiatives. We're going to jump back over to some survey results and management discussion of lake trout and some landlocked salmon updates, followed by more interaction in regards to our trout stocking program and potential changes we could have in upgrades and updates. And then the meeting will conclude with the general session of question and answer. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available online. It will take a little bit of time to get it up there. And in fact, the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago should be available soon online. Remember to keep yourself muted through the presentations, and there will be a brief question and answer period after each presentation. And I really do ask you to hold your questions, hold your general miscellaneous questions till the end, because we will have a general question and answer period. So please keep your questions focused on the topic at hand that you just heard about. Use the raise hand function during that time to ask live questions, and please remember that you will need to unmute yourself, as well as our staff will unmute you as well. For those of you, if there are any call-in number issues, if there are any audio issues, you can use the call-in number at 1-631-992-3221 with the audio access code of 612-057-965. Following the meeting, you could have the opportunity to shoot us an email if you have any questions or concerns at dfw@go-to-meetings@dep.nj.gov. There will be a live polling component during the presentations, giving you an opportunity to weigh in, and we can see not just what one person's comment or suggestion is, but we can maybe get a feel for what the audience views. And right now, it appears that there's approximately 70 people in this meeting at the moment. Another common theme is just going to be, the potential for regulation changes. So this is a great opportunity for you to voice your questions or concerns and weigh in on some potential regulatory changes that may be considered to go into effect January 2026. And with that, I want to pass the microphone over to our Assistant Director, Lisa Barno. She's a former Bureau Chief of Freshwater Fisheries, and she has some information to share with all of you. All yours, Lisa.
Thanks, Sean, and good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. As I stated at our last forum a couple weeks ago, this is our 20th anniversary of New Jersey Fish and Wildlife Fisheries Forums. And this is a little bit bittersweet because this is my very last. I'll be retiring at the end of this month. Looking at that video at PeakWest, it was first at full production in 1986, and I started at the hatchery at 1989. So it was really exciting to be part of that facility and its I&E components and the long history and all the fish it's supplied to New Jersey anglers. And I also want to thank you, all the attendees, for 2 decades of a lot of great discussions. We've done a lot of stocking changes, program changes, regulation changes, all with your input your recommendations and suggestions. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to really take an active role in the managing of our state's freshwater resources. As you know, the staff is top-notch and they take a lot of pride in the work that they do, and it shows in a lot of the programs. A great example of that is the Go Fish Fridays, which Craig Lemon, our hatchery superintendent at Hackettstown, started. We are now nearing almost our 3rd anniversary, which will be at the end of this month. In-house, it makes all our efforts worthwhile. We really get a first glance of all the great photos that the anglers sent in, and we really helps the morale throughout the week as we see those photos before they're shared to the public through our INE staff that distribute them across the social media. Also, similar program in trying to recognize all the excellent opportunities we have is our Skillful Anglers program, and that's run by Kyle Sivalier, who's our fisheries technician with the Research and Management Unit. One thing I can say though, I definitely would love to see more anglers submitting their catches to this program. It's a really great way to highlight the excellent opportunities that we have. So on to some quick highlights. I've shortened them up a little bit because we have a pretty packed program and we want to allow plenty of opportunity for you to raise your questions and provide comments. If you're not aware, our buddy fishing license legislation was passed earlier this year. When the legislation for the buddy license, which provides a 50% discount to anyone purchasing a license when you either bring in a new or lapsed angler with you. When it was first passed, it was supposed to be on a 5-year rolling average for lapsed anglers. But unfortunately, it had a set year of 2015 in it. So basically, a lapsed angler now is someone who hasn't purchased a license for the past 14 years. But this was corrected by the bill that was passed earlier this year. It will take us, end of this year to get the ELS system updated. So starting in the 2025 licenses, it will be corrected. So anybody who hasn't purchased a license in 5 years will be able to get the 50% discount, and anybody who brings in somebody new or lapsed also gets the 50% discount. So it's a great discount for all the angling. Another project I know many of you are interested in. If you attended the last meeting, then there's not really more of an update, but we are and do continue to work on the Greenwood Lake boat ramp. We are working with Parks and Forestry to put a boat launch at Browns Point. As those of you who are keeping tabs on the issues, we ran into some issues with Highland regulations on restrictions concerning the amount of impervious cover that we can put on the site, which affects the amount of parking we can provide. So we've tried several different ways of addressing the concerns to offset the impact, and we're about back on our 3rd recalculation of impervious area, back to the engineers. Once we get those plans, the conceptual plans done, they will be posted on the Parks and Forestry website, and you'll be able to see what that looks like. I know everybody's frustrated about how long this is taking, but we really feel that taking this extra time to get as much available parking at such an important fishery is going to be well worth the time invested. And we really do owe it to the anglers that have really kept this issue up with the legislators and in the public eye, because that really helps us keep it as a priority. Some of the other ongoing work that we have is that each year Fish and Wildlife gets about $1 million in corporate business tax funds that we use towards fishing and boating access. Most of this is done through our lands management staff working within our wildlife management areas. At Round Valley, which is practically full, There are new docks planned, but that will be later this fall. We also received funds to upgrade the restroom facilities, which if anybody's visited Round Valley in a while, it's long overdue. That project, though, between design and installation is probably a year and a half out. There is work also at putting a new ramp at Jake's Landing on Dennis Creek Wildlife Management Area. That's in Woodbine. That's in the design phase. And we'll be getting bids from the engineering firms about at the end of this month. We continue with work on a new ramp at Belvedere. That's currently in the design phase. And at Spicer Creek, we're repairing the ramp and have an installation of a new floating dock. And we anticipate that to be done around later this winter. And finally, at Stevens and Maple Lake, we have floating docks that will be installed and also upgrades to the parking areas. We expect that to be completed fairly soon. And with that, I'll pass that back to Chief Krause. Thank you again. Appreciate all the great interactions that we've had over the years, and I will definitely miss working with all of you.
Thanks a lot, Lisa, and you'll definitely be missed as well. It's been a real pleasure over the years. We appreciate your leadership, your strength, and your motivation, and you'll deeply be missed. One thing that I failed to mention earlier in the meeting was that we do have a diversity of fish and wildlife staff on the call. We have representatives from our Pequest Trout Hatchery, our Hackettstown Hatchery, our biologists, our I&E department, and also lands management. So moving on to the next speaker is Justin Rosema. He's a biologist with us, and he's enthusiastic. He's doing a lot of good work, and we're all excited to have him share some of the work he's done. So Justin, it is all yours.
Well, again, thank you so much, Sean, for the introduction. So as Sean mentioned, hi everybody. My name is Justin Rosema. I came online with full-time with Fish and Wildlife back about 2 years ago. And I've taken over as our Coolwater fisheries specialist here with the state. So with that, I wanted to share with you guys some of the Coolwater monitoring work that we've been doing over the past year that we conducted back in 2023, and some of the results and some of the discussions about what some of our results there, as well as sharing a potential regulation change that I would like to get some angler feedback on. When I'm referring to our Coolwater program, what am I referring to? And that would be our program where Hackettstown Hatchery raises and stocks multiple different species, including muskie, pike, walleye, hybrid striped bass, and tiger muskie. All these species require cooler temperatures and higher dissolved oxygen contents than traditional warm water fish such as largemouth bass and channel catfish do, but not quite to the extent that trout do. As I mentioned, all these fish are raised and stocked by our wonderful staff, such as Craig and Tyler over at the Hackettstown Hatchery. In 2023 alone, Hackettstown Hatchery stocked over 10,000 muskie, 21,000 northern pike, 222,000 walleye, and 46,000 hybrid striped bass into state waters to grow into trophy-sized targets for anglers. These fish, however, have very little documented, if any, natural reproduction throughout the state of New Jersey, and they require these annual stockings in order to create fisheries for anglers to be able to target them. If you tuned into our previous forum, both Craig and Tyler shared some wonderful insight on the hatchery side of the program, about raising and stocking walleye. This talk will focus on the other half of our Coolwater program, which focuses primarily on our monitoring and management. So to begin, from 2014 to 2017, a strong focused effort to reevaluate all of our Coolwater stocked fisheries occurred, led mostly in part from one of our biologists, Scott Collenberg. Out of this effort came a good baseline data set for all of our Coolwater fisheries so that we can make comparisons across time and better understand changes in these locations and fisheries over time. Now, as I came into the picture, starting in 2023, we developed a monitoring schedule that was created to increase the frequency of monitoring at these locations, in these lakes and reservoirs. Based on the schedule, an evaluation of each species stocked at every water body where they are stocked will occur once every 6 years. To walk you through a typical year of this monitoring schedule, it begins at the beginning of March while we sample for northern pike. We set trap nets concurrently with Hackettstown Hatchery when they conduct their broodstock collection for northern pike. These trap nets work similar to a giant minnow trap, and they're set typically when the water reaches around 40 degrees Fahrenheit and the pike begin to spawn. Each survey at each water takes approximately 5 days to complete. Next, we move into our walleye work, which typically takes place when the walleye start to push shallow and spawn and start beginning to run to spawn, typically between the temperatures of 44 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We typically conduct approximately 2 to 3 nighttime boat electrofishing surveys at each lake that we evaluate. Then lastly for the spring, when the water reaches 50 degrees and above, we begin our muskie sampling, again going back to the trap nets. We conduct muskie surveys at 2 water bodies each year to keep up with this monitoring schedule. Each survey will typically take between 5 to 10 days, depending on the size of the lake. Once the summer ends, we set gill nets to sample for hybrid striped bass once every 2 years, since we only stock 3 water bodies. And we typically set them once the water reaches approximately 57 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Those aren't quite perfectly round, as those are mostly based off of degrees Celsius. These surveys typically last about 3 days in the fall. So here are the lakes that we sampled in 2023. We sampled in the beginning Farrington Lake for northern pike, and then moved to Swartswood Lake for walleye and Little Swartswood Lake for muskie. We also sampled Lake Musconetcong for tiger muskie, and then in the fall we went to Spruce Run Reservoir to sample hybrid striped bass. A total of 28 days of trap netting occurred, with 2 nights of boat electrofishing and 3 days of gill netting. Now, before I can discuss these results, I need to mention some of the metrics that we frequently use to assess the status of these places. The first one on the far left there is catch per unit effort. This is a way for us to track how abundant a species is, including our target species and other bycatch species. It is simply a measurement of the number of species of the target species caught per overnight net set or hour spent electrofishing. Secondly, in the center there is called relative weight. And it is simply a mathematical way to calculate how fat or skinny a fish is. Based on a fish's length, we can estimate what a fish should weigh and compare it to what it actually ended up weighing when we measured it. The result is a percent, where if the fish weighs greater than 100%, it's considered fatter than expected, and vice versa. Typically, if the fish is less than 80% of its expected weight, it's considered problematic. Lastly, on the far right, proportional size distribution calculates the percent of fish that we caught that were greater than a particular size. These sizes vary for each species and are loosely based on each species' maximum reachable size. Various size categories for each species are present, and I listed them there in increasing size. Quality size is the smallest size that we'll be talking about. Memorable is the largest, and preferred is in between. The labels below it, PSD, PSDP, and PSDM, you'll see will be in the tables in the coming slides, and those will be what I'll be using to mention those sizes. The proportional size distribution ends up helping us understand the balances between small versus large fish. A healthy fishery has a fair balance of both sizes. So to begin discussing some of our results, firstly, I'll be talking about Farrington Lake here. Farrington Lake was first stocked with northern pike back in 1987, and the fishery saw a lot of early success. We saw a lot of catch rates and a lot of really nice quality fish coming out. But as we continued to assess the water body in 1999 and then subsequently in 2014, we began to see a decline in the abundance of northern pike here. So when we went back to resample, we were hoping to get a better idea as to how the population has changed even further since that time. Northern pike catch per unit effort, as you can see in the first column there, similarly is pretty comparable to how it was found in 2014. In New Jersey, our average catch per unit effort for pike is 2.6 fish per net. So the values of 0.4 and 0.5 fish per net is pretty low. Relative weights for these northern pike were pretty healthy, with being fairly close to 100%. Back in 2014, PSD was not able to be calculated due to the low amount of pike that were captured. So we spent some extra time, we spent an extra week sampling on Farrington so that we could get an estimate of the population size. Population was found to be comprised of mostly larger northern pike, with 100% of the pike captured being over 21 inches and 64% being over 28 inches. Mentioning down to the next column is bluegill, which was our most abundant species that we caught and is an important food source for northern pike. You can see that in the yellow highlight there, that 66% of the bluegill caught in 2014 were greater than 6 inches, which was reduced to only 36% in 2023. Overall, it appears that the size of bluegill here is on average shrinking. Yellow perch, another important prey source, also saw some changes between 2014 and 2023. The blue highlight shows a decent drop in catch per unit effort, suggesting that their abundance has decreased during this time period. In addition, the yellow highlight shows that the percent of fish greater than 8 inches dropped from 54% to only 11%. The yellow perch fishery appears to have went from decently abundant and balanced to more of a few and far between and pretty small. But however, despite these declines in major forage species, northern pike population here hasn't changed much. It hasn't declined, yet it also hasn't improved. So here's a couple photos of some of the large northern pike that we captured out of Farrington Lake. The fish on the right was just over 40 pounds. With the poor returns that we had on the pike fishery here, the future management of Farrington Lake is, I'm looking to adjust the management here. And I want to base that, partially on angler preference. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to launch a poll question for all of you to answer. And now if all of you could please vote. The question here is, which management strategy for Farrington Lake would you prefer? One answer is to be pike focused, one is to be balanced between pike and bass, the other is bass focused. I'll let this sit here for a minute as everybody fills out their answer. We're currently sitting at about 30% of everybody that has voted so far. We're up to about 55%. I'm going to leave this open hopefully until we hit about 80 to 90%. We're sitting at about 70%. Give it about 10 more seconds before I close it. We're at 73%. We're about 75. Going once, going twice, and I'm going to close the poll now. So now I'm going to share the results with you. And it appears we have a pretty balanced amount of people that are interested in either pike focused management at the lake or a balanced management of pike and bass here. So thank you guys, and I appreciate the feedback on that, and I'll be considering that as we continue to make further management decisions here at Farrington Lake. Now, hopefully you guys can get back to my PowerPoint slide here as I move on to our next water body that I'll be discussing, which is Lake Musconetcong. Lake Musconetcong is our newest coolwater fishery, which we began introducing tiger muskie into starting in 2018. This survey was the first time that the lake has been evaluated for this species. However, unfortunately, none were captured throughout the 5-day-long survey that occurred. However, what was a surprise to our biologists was that an excellent panfish fishery was discovered. When comparing our results from the 2023 survey to electrofishing work that was conducted in 2009, the fisheries for black crappie, yellow perch, and white perch all appeared to either improve or remain strong. If you look at black crappie in the yellow highlight, 96% of the crappies that we caught were greater than 10 inches, and 32% were greater than 12. And then on the right with white perch in the highlight, very few were captured in 2009, and not enough were captured to be able to calculate any sort of metrics. However, in 2023, we found them to be fairly abundant, and they were fat and large, with 99% being greater than 10 inches and 77% of what we caught being greater than 12. These large panfish make for a solid fishery, but they're not necessarily ideal for forage for tiger muskies. The fact that the fishery is still new and developing, as well as some angler reports of some tiger muskies being caught from about 30 to 35 inches, provides some hope for the future of the fishery here. And on the left there in that picture, we actually ended up capturing single hybrid striped bass that seemed to be escapement from Lake Apacong there. I wanted to include that picture. So next brings us to Little Swartswood Lake. Now, Little Swartswood Lake has been in the Coolwater program since 1991. At first was stocked only with tiger muskie. We used to, once we hit about 2018, we shifted to annual stocking of pure strain muskie there, which had been stocked about every 2 years since 2008. When this lake was sampled back in 2016, part of Scott Collenberg's work, no muskie were captured. However, long discussions with local angling groups put question into the results of that survey, as a lot of anglers indicated that there was a good fishery there for muskie. In 2023, we went back out there in an attempt to reevaluate the lake to better understand that quality of the fishery and to set a better baseline for upcoming future monitoring. Over the course of the 5-day survey, we caught 3 muskie, which comes out to a calculation of about a 0.25 catch per unit effort, which is equal to Pennsylvania's standard for a quality muskie fishery. The average relative weight for these 3 muskie was 115%. However, 2 fish were ripe females and full of eggs, which brought up the average a little bit. But regardless, all fish were in great shape. With only 3 fish, our proportional stock density values weren't able to be calculated accurately. However, all fish were bigger than 35 inches, which further shows the quality of the fishery here. Overall, Little Swartswood Lake appears to be supporting a quality muskie fishery. Now, moving on to Swartswood Lake. Walleye were first introduced here back in 1992. If you guys were at the previous forum, you would know that Hackettstown Hatchery uses this lake for its annual broodstock collection, and their data continues to show a great fishery is present. In April of 2023, we conducted 2 nighttime electrofishing surveys in order to collect data using boat electrofishing rather than trap nets to provide comparable data to some of our other state fisheries that we manage using boat electrofishing as a sampling method. Walleye were found to be very abundant, with over 100 fish being caught with only 3 hours of electrofishing occurring. This nearly doubles the catch rate that was observed from boat electrofishing in 2015, and almost doubles the catch rate that New York DEC considers to be high. Relative weights for these walleye, despite increasing in abundance, have remained stable at 100%. In the size of the walleye, it does appear to have increased slightly, with 98% being over 15 inches and 67% being over 20. Largemouth and smallmouth bass that were also captured during the survey were found to both be in low abundance. Largemouth bass abundance may have remained stable from 2015 to 2023, while smallmouth bass could have potentially declined. However, not enough of either species was captured to accurately calculate any sort of metrics. Additional work targeting bass has been recommended to better understand the bass fishery here. On the right, the population of walleye found here appeared to be evenly distributed, but the spike in the center of that graph shows that the majority of walleye captured in our survey were between about 19.5 inches to 21.5 inches. Overall, the walleye fishery here at Swartswood Lake appears to be in high abundance and is a fantastic opportunity for anglers to use. Lastly, we move on to Spruce Run Reservoir, in which in October of 2023, we conducted a gill net survey specifically targeting the hybrid striped bass fishery here. A total of 23 hybrid striped bass ended up being caught. And the slight drop in catch per unit effort seen there could possibly be attributed to changes in our net locations, as Spruce Run was about 15 feet higher in 2023 than in 2015, which caused our exact net locations that we typically monitor at to have to be shifted to be able to target the appropriate depths to capture hybrid striped bass. The relative weights and PSD values ended up not changing much between the surveys. A slightly higher percentage of the population caught in our nets in 2023 ended up being greater than 15 inches. In addition to the hybrids caught, a few northern pike were captured, but not enough to make any assumptions on the status of that fishery, and monitoring will be occurring for northern pike at some point in the near future. Overall, Spruce Run Reservoir's hybrid striper population appears to still be in great condition and provide great opportunities for anglers. With all that talk now, that concludes all of our results here. And now what I want to share with all of you is a proposed regulation change that'll be occurring related to our Coolwater fisheries here. So currently, our muskie regulations state that most water bodies are open year-round. However, there is a catch and release regulation on a handful of waters historically utilized by Hackettstown Hatchery as broodstock collection lakes. During these broodstock collection efforts, muskies are typically anesthetized using a product called tricaine, which allows hatchery staff to be able to take the eggs without creating much harm to the fish. However, the use of tricaine ends up placing a human consumption advisory on the fish for approximately 20 days after the powder is used. The catch and release regulations were designed to prevent the harvest of those fish that were used for broodstock collection and then subsequently anesthetized and released. Starting during the COVID time, around 2020, Hackettstown Hatchery began sourcing the majority of their muskie eggs from out of state, from Pennsylvania, requiring fewer broodstock collection efforts over the past couple of years and fewer fish needing to be collected from New Jersey state waters. In recent years, Hackettstown has been able to hold the few muskies that they've been using for egg take at the hatchery, releasing them back into the wild only once that consumption advisory is passed. This ends up eliminating that initial need and purpose that the catch and release regulation was intended for. By opening the season on all water bodies, it ends up simplifying the muskie regulations for all anglers as the need for the catch and release is no longer necessary in that aspect. However, what I want to do again is to launch another poll question for all of our anglers here. And I would like your opinion on this. So do you support the removing of the catch and release at all these? I'll let this poll sit for a little bit. We're sitting right now at about 14% voted, looking at about 50% voted. We're now up to 60. We're at about 70%. And I'm going to close the poll. And I'll share the results with everybody. And it appears that 36% people are in favor of expanding the open season, and 30% of the people are in favor of keeping it the same. Thank you all for your feedback on that. Now, to close out my presentation, obviously I mentioned that a lot of our work is conducted in the springtime, and we are approaching already the early summer. So we've already completed most of our spring work for cool water species. So I want to give you guys a quick peek into possibly next year's presentation at our couple lakes that we ended up monitoring this year. So the first place that we went to was Pompton Lake, where we caught 26 pike ranging from 25 to 40 inches. At Monksville Reservoir, we both night electrofished for walleye, catching about 87, and trap netted for muskies, where we caught 6 muskie from 27 to 50 inches. Lastly, we also surveyed Mountain Lake, and we caught 3 muskie from 29 to 33 inches. Currently, right now, all this data analysis will be ongoing throughout the summer and the fall as I get opportunities to spend some time looking at it. And this is just a quick heads up and a look at what's coming up for the future. So I hope that you guys all tune in next year to learn more about the results from this spring surveys. With that, I want to thank you all for listening. And if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to reach me at my personal email there on the bottom left. Thank you all.
Great job there, Justin. So at this point, we're going to open up for any questions about Justin's cool water presentation. So if you have any questions, please use the function to raise your hand, and staff will then identify those hands raised and you can ask a question.
I see 2 hands raised. I'm going to call on Luke Ledropier. Luke, I'm going to unmute you on our end, and you have to unmute yourself, sir.
Just curious, I'm not sure if this is a good question for this, but regarding hybrid bass, stripers, are there any thoughts of stocking those in other lakes as well? Expanding that fishery out. I love that fishery so much, so
yeah,
so much good work there. Any thoughts on bringing them to other lakes?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much I can say as of right now, but I can say that currently I'm working on a couple assessments at a couple locations to possibly expand that into new waters. Currently, we have a list of a handful of candidates that we're currently looking to assess in the near future. I don't want to say any particular water bodies right now because we don't know exactly which ones we're going to be selecting at this point. But there's a couple wheels turning right now to try and make a couple new selections.
Cool. Very excited about that. I guess a side question to that. Is there any considerations? More curious on your thoughts of stocking pure strains along with them. I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that we've kind of refrained from stocking pure strains as just where there's a little bit of a fear of escapement into like the Delaware River drainage and also to the Atlantic coastal drainage, and interference with the our actual wild striped bass out in the saltwater, as they are the same species.
Mhm.
So I think that we've kind of been refraining from going that route.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands raised, so I guess we can proceed, Sean.
Sounds good, Eric. Thanks again, Justin. We really appreciate all that information. Good stuff. Good work, man.
Thank you.
The next presenter is Karen Byrne. She's going to give us some updates on our freshwater fishing education programs. She's with our Bureau of Information Education, and she did a lot of work to get us off the ground to hold these meetings virtually so we could have increased attendance. So it's all yours, Karen.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me tonight. So as Sean mentioned, my name's Karen Byrne. I work with the Bureau of Information and Education, and I oversee both Fishing R3 and the fishing education programs. And I'll be sharing with you a little bit of what we're doing with both of those in New Jersey. So let's start with Fishing R3. Probably a lot of you are not familiar with the term R3. It's an industry term. And so what exactly does that mean? Well, it's a nationwide effort to recruit, retain, and reactivate anglers. Over the past years, there's been a decline nationally of people who are participating in fishing and hunting and the shooting sports as well. And so this R3 initiative is to slow the decline and hopefully reverse it. So when we look at the 3 R's, the first R is recruitment, and that focuses on introducing people to fishing who have never fished before. This can be through a beginner workshop or even breaking down perceived barriers people have that fishing isn't something they can do. The next R is retention, and that's keeping those existing participants fishing year after year. We want you to come back and buy your license each year and continue to enjoy the fisheries. The final R is reactivation, and that focuses on anglers who have fallen away or lapsed from the sport of fishing and to bring them back. So now they become engaged participants and are retained. So how do we know where we are with R3 efforts and what New Jersey needs to do? So the only way to do this is to look at our license sales. That's kind of how we gauge this. So if we take a look at New Jersey's license sales, we are actually overall doing okay. While some states are still struggling with decreasing license sales, if you take a moment and squint your eyes at those last 3 yellow dots, you'll actually see we're increasing in our license sales. Now you'll see in the 90s, we had an all-time high, and we're probably never going to see those numbers again unless something major changes in society. So during COVID, a lot of states saw what we called the COVID bump, where license sales increased quite a bit. And this was kind of a good sign for us that are in this field, that when people are limited with what and where they can go, many return to fishing. So one of the biggest reasons that license sales are declining is time and how we spend our time. And now in the 2020s, there's so many things competing with our time. But in New Jersey, as I said, we're on the rise. So that's really good for us. And why is that? Well, part of that is New Jersey Fish and Wildlife staff are doing something right. And one of those things that we're doing is our social media platforms and our email delivery systems. We're able to get a lot more information out easily and to a lot of anglers. We're able to let people know when stocking dates are, where to go, what's going on, programs we're offering. It's just been a real nice thing we've had to be able to connect with anglers. Also, the folks who are on this meeting tonight are hatchery staff and biologists. They're doing a great job. They're raising and stocking fish in the waters you want to fish in. They're monitoring New Jersey's water bodies and making sure those fish populations are healthy and there's actually fish to catch. And they're also engaging with you and getting feedback from you. So for now, and with New Jersey, we're looking to maintain what we're doing. We want to keep that on the rise. If we look at 2024, it looks like we're on track to either equal out where we were in 2023, or maybe even increase a little bit more. So one of the tools that has come out of the R3 movement that a lot of states have adopted, and New Jersey recently has as well, is writing an R3 plan. So in October of 2022, we were able to get a full-time employee named Alana Newmark, and you see her pictured here, and she's our Angler R3 coordinator. With hiring Alana, we were able to get an Angler R3 plan written for New Jersey. And we didn't just write it, Alana and I, we actually engaged staff from other bureaus. So some of the folks on the call tonight on the webinar, they were involved. So staff from Freshwater Fisheries, law enforcement, or licensing unit, as well as other staff from information and education. And together we worked to develop a goal and 3 objectives that we're striving to accomplish over 3 years. And our goal, we kept it really simple, is to increase fishing participation in New Jersey among licensed buyers. And the way we want to do this is our objective 1 is to reduce angler churn. So churn is a huge problem within fishing, that a lot of anglers will move in and out of buying a license. 1 year they'll buy it, the next couple years they won't, then they'll buy it again. So reducing the angler churn rate is how do we get someone to buy a license and keep them coming back year after year to fish and purchase that license. A lot of things we're going to be looking at is email marketing campaigns, developing fishing resources to engage and support current and new anglers, and stuff like that. Our objective 2 is to increase license sales. And again, we're going to be looking at marketing campaigns to promote fishing opportunities in New Jersey, also within our state parks. And two things that research has shown is targeting women is a really good thing, and families as well. And our final objective is to implement a coordinated marketing and communication campaign to reach Hispanic anglers. With almost 22% of New Jersey's population being Hispanic, we're looking to get materials translated and information out to those anglers to make it easier for them. And so that wraps up the R3 part, but of course, part of our R3 plan is our fishing education programs. And this is the fun stuff that we get to do. So with bringing Alana on, we were able to start new fishing education programs. And one of them she developed is the Let's Go Fishing program. And this program looks to introduce beginner adult fishing workshops, and also to get some of those lapsed anglers fishing again. We always offer, if you have fishing equipment, bring it with you. And we provide equipment as well. In 2023, that was her first year running programs. We had 8 workshops with 69 participants. In 2024, we're looking to offer more workshops in South Jersey, as that's an area we hear a lot of people want fishing programs. And we're also looking to do some fishing meetups, where this will be participants can come and go as they please to an event within a community. We'll have equipment available. They can bring their equipment. We can get that up and running. And it's just a nice way to offer another fishing experience for those who have taken some of our programs. We're also looking to offer advanced fishing seminars and programs. This year we had an ice fishing seminar up at PQuest, and we're looking to expand some of those as well. Another new initiative we started this year was at our Hackettstown hatchery. We are now offering some fishing workshops up there under the First Catch Center. So one of the organizations who we partner with a lot with, and who supply a lot of states with resources and funding, is the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. And they started these First Catch centers in a variety of states. They've evolved to some are physical locations like the hatchery. Some states have trailers, and they provide us with equipment and materials we need to get these programs off the ground and running. For us, we're looking to focus on the warm and cool water fisheries, as well as introduction workshops for women and families. That goes back to our Angler R3 plan. So in 2023, that was the first year we started doing these workshops. We had 3 of them for just about 50 people. So in 2024, we're going to be looking to offer 7 to 8 workshops and have a variety of different things as well. While women and family are the focus, we're also going to be doing some species-specific workshops as well. So for those who maybe never targeted channel cats, we did a workshop for that last year, and that was really popular. And then, of course, we have our PQuest, Trout, Hatchery, and Natural Resource Education programs. These programs have been around forever, and they're still going strong, and we're back to where we were pre-COVID. So Jessica, who you saw in the video, she's running organized groups again. Schools are coming, scout groups are coming. They have a full schedule this spring, summer, and fall already. They also are doing some open public programming for family fishing, as well as we have someone on staff now who loves fly fishing, and he's been really trying to get a lot more fly fishing programs out there for others to enjoy. She also runs a program for adults, for parents, people who want to fish with their kids and aren't really sure how to go, and that's the Let's Go Fishing P-Quest. In 2023, you can see she had 662 youth participate in the group organized programs, and 267 people participated in the public programs. Another longstanding program we've had for 11 years is our Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs program. This program is focused on school-age kids, and it's to encourage them to avoid tobacco, drug, and alcohol usage by providing an alternative activity like fishing and learning to appreciate our aquatic and environmental resources while developing some positive life skills. The programs here are developed as teams with a team leader and a group of youth who meet regularly, whether it's a fishing club, a recreation club, something of that nature. So those programs are going strong. June 1st is Free Fishing Day. It's also our Youth Fishing Challenge. So if you have a child who might want to be interested in fishing, it's a great way to introduce them. You can go on our website, njfishandwildlife.com, and under education, find the Hooked on Fishing tab, and it gives you a list of all the Youth Fishing Challenge sites, which are throughout the state. And an offshoot of the HOFNOD program, Liz Jackson, who runs that program, noticed that there are a lot of students or youth who are interested in fishing, but the moms weren't into it or were afraid of it and didn't know it. So she started her Sisters of Field program. This is the second year running it. You'll see on the left-hand side, that was year 1. On the right-hand side, that's our year 2. And it's been pretty successful. The moms who attend, they're always very excited to fish with their children, and their children are so passionate about it, and they get into it with them as well. So it's been fun doing this program and watching it grow. And finally, we have started our fishing education instructor program. And this was also from our Angler R3 plan. This was our first training, was held in March. We had one up north at Hackettstown and one south at a sporting club. We had about 50 volunteers who were trained to assist with the fishing programs. And this would be a great opportunity for any of you who are on this webinar. If you're interested in giving back, if you like teaching, if you're not sure if you like teaching, you know, attending one of these programs and volunteering with us, we would love to have you come and help out. You must be 18 years or older. We'll train you on what we teach, and we have programs throughout the state. You can volunteer at P-Quest, Hackettstown, with Alana at the Let's Go Fishing programs, or with Liz at her various HOFNOD programs. So with that, that's all I have. I thank you. If you have any ideas of places you would love to see a fishing clinic or topics you would like us to do, you can send an email to the Fishing R3 email, and Alana or I will get back to you.
Thanks a lot, Karen. That was a lot of great information. Definitely appreciate you being part of this program. I think it was a great addition. Does anybody have any questions for Karen? While we're taking a look at that to see if there's any hands raised, I'd just like to make a plug that I think one of the best ways to continue the tradition of fishing is for me to make a plug for the anglers on this call tonight to reach out and bring somebody with you. Bring somebody new to the sport, take advantage of the buddy fishing license program. And really, you know, studies show, we all know, right? When asked how you got started in fishing, most folks will answer, you know, a friend or family member invited me. So do that, continue the tradition, reach out to somebody young and old, bring them fishing with you on your next trip. Eric, do we have any hands raised?
Yes, I see 3 hands raised, Sean. The top of my list, I see Nick Monefusco. Nick, I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, good presentation. It's good to see that we're working to get more people involved in the sport. Regarding the Bring a Buddy Fishing or the buddy fishing license, do you have any stats on how many of those buddies actually continue with the sport? When, like, you know, with repeat license sales for the people that took advantage as a buddy. I'm just wondering how successful that's been so far.
I don't have that information, but part of with this Angler R3 plan, it's to help us kind of track that and see. And with the new buddy fishing license program, like we're already starting to think about like how we can promote that and market that within the state and keep better track of, you know, who's taking advantage of that. So I personally, we're not keeping track of that. We could get the data from our licensing agents and have them run reports for us. But with the Angler R3 plan, that's one of the things we're looking to do, kind of really analyze those numbers and see what's working and what's not working and make sure we stay on track with license sales increase.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm wondering if there's like an alternative way to approach it, like maybe offer first year, like if someone has never owned a license or hasn't purchased a license in the last 10 or 15 years, to just, they don't need to have a buddy to take advantage of a discounted first year license. Like it seems like there are maybe more creative ways to get people into the sport initially, you know, make it very low barrier for them to do that, and then see if that, you know, maybe again, if you had data on the buddy, you could try that for a year or two, you know, a discounted first year, and then see what the retention rates are. Just something to try to increase entry into the sport, because you know, as you said, even though New Jersey's kind of holding its own, we're nowhere near where we were, you know, 20 years ago, so, or 30 years ago, whatever the high was. I guess I was 30 now.
Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, and if you think about your life in the 90s and what it is now with smartphones and social media, you know, like, you know, unless something really changes, we're not going to get back to those numbers. But, you know, I would love to have you take our training and be one of our volunteers and help us and give lots of good ideas. We're always open to new ideas. So.
All right, thanks.
I think that's all the hands we have right now. I don't see any more hands. Oh, I see Alex Garris. Are you, Alex? I'm going to unmute you, Alex, and you can ask your question.
Will there be a third forum for salmonage?
Yeah, actually, we have an annual trout meeting earlier in the year, every year, and that's already occurred. So you can keep an eye open for that next spring. Before.
I thought maybe you had a series going here. It would be 1, 2, 3.
Well, yeah. At this point, it's 1, 2. So yeah, we of what we're calling the freshwater fisheries forums. But yeah, annually we do have a spring trout meeting. This past year that was held on March 7th. So look forward again next year in the early March timeframe.
And we have that
on
YouTube, and you can watch that recording.
You know what? Also, you said you would send links to recorded meetings. I've not gotten one.
Well, I took your name down and I'll look up your email and I'll make sure I send the links directly to you. The links typically come through the GoToWebinar emails that you get when you sign up. They send a post one, but I can make sure you get all those links, Alex.
Yeah, I've gotten reminders for these two, but I don't have a recording of either.
Well, we'll make sure to get you those. So thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Karen. We really appreciate it. Let's move on to the next presenter. He's definitely going to be a familiar face because we just heard from Justin earlier. This time he's going to switch the topic and he's going to talk about lake trout and our landlocked salmon.
Okay, great. Thank you again for the introduction. So yeah, I'm back. Hopefully you guys aren't sick and tired of hearing from me already, but you know, again, I'm also, on top of being our Coolwater fisheries biologist, I'm also our state's current lake salmon biologist. So with that, I'm going to be giving you guys a quick update on some of the lake trout and landlocked, some lake trout work that we've been conducting over the past 2 years, and some updates on a new program that we've been working on with our landlocked salmon. as well as floating a couple regulation changes that we'll be thinking about in regards to lake trout. So typically, our lake trout monitoring occurs once every 2 years at both Merrill Creek Reservoir and Round Valley Reservoir. These surveys usually take place from late October to mid-November, and sampling takes about 6 days per reservoir, spread out about 2 weeks apiece for a total of about a month total of sampling. As I mentioned, we recently surveyed in 2022, as well as collecting some supplemental data in 2023 in preparation for our upcoming fish code cycle change to be able to get some additional data to create some new regulations at these water bodies. A total of 16 overall net sets per reservoir are set each time we sample, 8 of which are what is called an experimental mesh size, which targets immature lake trout off of their spawning grounds. And these nets are designed to have multiple different mesh sizes ranging from small to large in order to capture a variety of sizes of lake trout. And then in addition, we also set 8 adult-sized mesh nets that have a much larger mesh in them to capture our larger adult fish that are typically spawning on spawning grounds, which in both reservoirs is typically the main dams. The nets are set overnight and pulled the following day, and we typically move them into new locations after we do that. All of the lake trout that we get, we sex them, we weigh them, and we measure them before we either return them to the water alive, or if they did not survive in the gill net, which is fairly infrequent, we will take them back and check them for their stomach contents to get some stomach content analyses on it. Now this slide should look pretty familiar to you guys from earlier on in the forum, so I don't have to spend too much time describing these indices again. But the one main indice that we're going to be discussing over the next couple minutes is going to be focusing a lot of discussion based on relative weight. For people that didn't tune in earlier, relative weight is especially important here because this is going to be talking about what the fish actually weighed versus what it should weigh, and it's typically shown as a percent. And below we have a quick description that's lake trout specific when we talk about relative weight. So fish that have a greater than 100% relative weight and are typically considered heavier than expected. Fish that are between 90 to 99% of their relative weight are slightly lighter than expected. As we move into 80 to 89%, fish are significantly lighter. And this demonstrates that there could be a potential issue, typically food related, could be present at the water body. When you start getting less than 80% of their expected weight, it can be noted that there is a notable issue occurring. It is often used for fisheries managers as an action threshold that's used to make changes aimed at improving the fishery and improving those relative weight metrics. On the far right there with our proportional size distribution, our PSD values, I'm not going to be necessarily referring to them as much in percents as I did with the Coolwaters, but I am going to be using those size classes listed below to refer to the different sizes of lake trout that we capture at both reservoirs as I continue on this in this presentation. We'll be talking quickly about Round Valley Reservoir. So nets set on Round Valley have been standardized since at least the early 2000s. With the reservoir being so low, our net set locations had to be relocated in 2022 and 2023 to different depths and locations. And because of this, it ended up making it difficult to assess the exact abundance and the catch per unit effort of these species, because a lot of the variation in catch rates could potentially be attributed to us trying to move the nets and trying to essentially find the fish again as they move and change their habitats with the fluctuation in reservoir elevation. In total, between 2022 and 2023, we caught 250 lake trout. The average length of these fish ended up being 20.3 inches, and the largest fish pictured here ended up being 39.4 inches and just over 20 pounds. This graph here shows the average relative weight for lake trout captured at Round Valley in a given year. The colored lines that you see bouncing around show the relative weights for each different size class, as I mentioned before, shown on the right, and the black line represents the average for all fish caught. As you can see, in the far right there, as we get into 2018, 2022, and 2023, Round Valley's lake trout have been experiencing all-time record low relative weights. The average relative weight for these fish in 2023 ended up being 81%, which is just above what I mentioned to be the action threshold. Especially if you can see there's that yellow line that dips even further below the black line of all fish. That is our quality size fish from 19.5 inches to 25.5 inches. These quality size fish have had the lowest average relative weights of any of the size classes. So now we're getting a little bit further into the weeds here with our analysis here. So on the left graph, we have the length of fish on the x-axis with the relative weight plotted on the y-axis. Each one of those black dots represents an individual fish that we caught within the past 2 years. As you can see, the majority of fish that we caught were between our current slot limit of 15 inches to 24 inches, with only a handful of fish caught less than 15 inches and a fair number of fish caught above 24 inches as well. As you can see by the colored lines, that indicates that many of the fish that we caught were below the 80% threshold that is an action threshold, as I considered. The large number of fish, like as I mentioned, had relative weights less than 80%. This was about 34% of the total fish caught, the majority of which are in that quality size range, as you can see from the right graph. Now, when you look at the graph on the right, you can see that small size category shows that all fish are recorded in good condition. However, this is a little misleading because we did only catch one fish less than 12 inches, so that's fairly misleading. Almost 60% of the quality fish had relative weights less than 80%, as you can see from that large red bar there. The larger fish of preferred size that are greater than 25.5 inches appear to improve in condition when compared against the stock size fish. They appear to be about equal in condition there. Now this brings me to a regulation change that we here at the Research and Management Office are currently thinking about. Due to the poor relative weights of those fish within that slot limit size, we're looking to make some additional actions to increase the amount of lake trout that anglers are harvesting within that size class. So the two main actions that we are thinking about doing is that we are thinking about removing the catch and release season for lake trout to allow harvest during the spawning season. In addition, we're looking at possibly increasing the creel limit from 6 to 8 within that slot size to encourage additional angler harvest. Now, I think you guys know the drill a little bit. I'm going to be launching another poll question here, focusing on these potential reg changes here around Valley Reservoir. I'd like to know how you, the anglers, feel about the new creel limit that's being proposed here around Valley Reservoir, and if you feel that it should be increased further, kept the same, or if it should be reduced. Currently, we're about 55% voted, 60. I'm seeing a lot of fluctuations in votes. The choices are bouncing around just about everywhere. So please get your votes in, get your opinion heard, please. We're looking at about 70% voted. I'm going to close the poll here at 80% of people voted, and I'm going to share the results with everybody. It seems that we have a bit of a mixed bag of people that are interested in increasing the creel to what we're thinking about, keeping the creel the same, or potentially even reducing the creel. So thank you guys again for your opinions, and we'll definitely be keeping that in mind as we continue to develop these regulations and make some further decisions here. So now moving on to Merrill Creek Reservoir. We caught a total of 151 fish over our sampling efforts that we did between 2022 and 2023. Fish and Wildlife took over the sampling at Merrill Creek Reservoir from their private contractor, Norman Doe, back in 2018. And this has been between 2022 and 2023. It was the first time that the lake had been surveyed by Fish and Wildlife alone. Norman Doe had been monitoring the reservoir since 1989. The change in the monitoring agency ends up currently inhibiting some of our catch per unit effort comparisons due to some potential variations in methodologies such as like net lengths, net sizes, and especially potentially the locations where those nets were set by the contractor versus where we set them. So unfortunately, again, we weren't able to get a decent abundance estimate at this reservoir, but hopefully over time, we'll be able to develop a good monitoring network where we can measure changes in those abundances. Overall, the average length was slightly larger at Merrill Creek Reservoir than Round Valley, with our average fish being about 23 inches. And our largest fish captured was 37 inches, but only 14 pounds. We'll get to that in a minute. So Merrill Creek, similar to Round Valley, the lake trout here are experiencing all-time low relative weights. The average relative weight in 2023 was a little bit higher than at Round Valley at 85%. All size classes, though, if you look at those colored lines, had an average relative weight below 90%. Now, again, as we go back to those same graphs as in Round Valley, you can see that the distribution of those black dots is slightly different. And you can notice that those black dots are a lot more scattered. And it shows that the lake trout here of all different size classes end up having high percentages of fish just in fair condition, from about 80% to 90%. You can see that in that graph on the right with all of those yellow bars there. The larger fish are preferred size greater than 25.5 inches. However, had the highest proportion of fish in poor condition, with about 35% of the fish caught of that size being in poor condition. In total, 21% of the fish caught at Merrill Creek Reservoir were in poor condition. Another 55% of the total were in fair condition. Now this brings us to the regulation that we are thinking about adopting with our upcoming fish code change in 2026. Overall, it appears that the lake trout of most sizes in Merrill Creek are declining in condition. Therefore, again, we want to encourage angler harvest to remove more fish, to essentially make less mouths to feed to improve their relative weights. We are potentially thinking about incorporating the slot limit similar to Round Valley to allow some slightly better control of harvesting large versus small fish in the population. This also provides a good benefit of simplifying the regulations between Round Valley and Merrill Creek. In addition, the creel limit, or the slot limit, helps to provide some potential encouragement for anglers to harvest larger fish, as historic creel data at Merrill Creek suggests that angler harvest typically targets fish from about 17 to 23 inches. The overslot of greater than 24 inches ends up placing a reserved slot in the angler's creel, and it might call out to the anglers that might give them the opportunity to harvest more of those larger fish, as it's often difficult to encourage harvest of larger lake trout, since people typically like to catch and release them, and they're often seen as less desirable table fare. As was the same with Round Valley, we're looking at tossing around the idea of removing the catch and release period here at Merrill Creek, again to allow anglers to harvest fish year-round during the spawning season and during a time when they are slightly easier to find and target. Again, all of this is an attempt to simplify the regulations between both waters, with the season dates being open year-round and the size limits being identical, with the only major difference between Merrill Creek Reservoir and Round Valley Reservoir possibly only being the number of fish that are able to be creeled at each size. So again, I'm going to be launching one final poll for you all for this presentation. And I'd like to know how you all feel about the new regulations that we are thinking about here at Merrill Creek Reservoir with the new slot limit and the potential creel limits. Sitting at 45% voted, we're now over 60. We're now approaching 70, and I'll be closing the poll right here at 77%. And I'll share with you all that 50% of the people currently like the proposed regulations as is. Again, thank you all for your feedback with all of these and with trying to develop our regulations to better manage your fisheries. So moving on, I know I said that I would be talking about landlocked salmon. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys a program that between research and management and Hackettstown Hatchery we've been working on since 2022. Have you been fishing for landlocked salmon in the past 2 years and noticed that particular fins were missing from the salmon that you caught? Starting in the fall of 2022, Hackettstown Hatchery began fin clipping all of their landlocked salmon stocked in New Jersey at the request of our biologists. All fish from a particular year class or stocking have the same fin clipped. This fin clipping allows biologists to identify what year a fish was stocked and therefore the age of the fish. The age of the fish allows for a variety of information to be obtained. Particularly, I would like to look at how long fish are surviving in a particular water body and growth rates of these fish to see what their possible maximum size could be at each water body. This is all done currently in preparation for upcoming monitoring efforts that will be coming up within the next few years. We're currently working towards developing a sampling protocol for landlocked salmon with these fisheries surveys taking place potentially as early as this coming fall. In addition, discussions of creating a potential citizen science way for anglers to report their salmon catches with their fin clips is also currently being considered. Now, to give you a couple photographic examples of these fin clips, I'm going to be going through a couple of slides to show you some pictures. So fish stocked in 2021 and earlier had no clip. So you see that all of their fins are typically well intact. Fish stocked in the fall of 2022 will have an adipose clip. When these fish were brought into Hackettstown Hatchery in August of 2021 at a size of about 5 inches, they were all those adipose clips were clipped at that time, and the fish were then further raised for a little bit more than a year and then stocked in the fall of 2022, averaging about 16 inches. So overall, these adipose fin clipped fish would be approximately 3 years old, but only in the water body for about a year and a half now. This past fall, we did what is called a right pelvic fin clip, or also known as the ventral fin. These fish were received by Hackettstown in August 2022, and then stocked in the fall of 2023, averaging 15 inches. Now, as you can see in that left picture, you can see that what is left with the fish upside down is actually the right side of the pelvic fin when the fish is facing upright. You'll see that fin will either be missing, or in the bottom picture, it'll be a pretty underdeveloped, almost like a stub in those fish. These fish currently are approximately 2 years old, but have only been in the New Jersey's waters for about half a year. Coming up for this fall of 2024, Hackettstown has already received this year's landlocked salmon, and they've already completed the fin clip. And with this year, we'll be going with a right pectoral fin clip. The plan is currently to stock these fish right around November 1st of 2024. So keep an eye out in the future as we get into the fall and into upcoming years for these particular fish. Here's a slide showing you all of our past and future fin clips as of right now. Currently, we have developed a 5-year fin clipping cycle. Once we finish the left pectoral fin clip, we will be rotating back to the adipose clip. This is based partly on some of Maine's landlocked salmon work, as they noted that most salmon harvested by anglers are between 2 to 5 years old, but a few older fish are observed, and the oldest salmon that they observed was about 13 years old. So as I mentioned, starting again in 2027, we'll be starting again with an adipose clip. If fish containing identical clips from different years of stocking, such as adipose clipped fish from between 2022 and 2027, 5 years of growth between the two should provide enough distance between their lengths to distinguish their ages. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening, and thank you all again for providing your feedback and providing your input for the future management in New Jersey's both lake trout and landlocked salmon fisheries. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via that email or via the emails provided earlier on in this forum. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Justin. Let's move into a quick question and answer period. Please raise your hand and you'll be called on. How's it looking, Eric?
Charles Aday. I'm going to unmute you, Charles.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the great feedback.
That's my only comment. Very, very good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, I'm going to continue going down the list. Jim Kioka. I apologize if I get your name butchered. Just bear with me. Jim?
Thank you. Again, thank you for the presentation and thank you for populating our waters with great fish. I was wondering if the fin clipping affects the fish's ability to forage.
Yeah, so there was a lot of discussion and trying to figure out exactly what kind of fin clip rotation we wanted to go with because of potential issues with that, because there is some impact to the fish's ability to swim around and to catch fish, catch bait and everything. But what a lot of the research showed, there's basically was two different thought processes that we could have taken. We could have taken a fin clip rotation that would include the adipose fin and then those two ventral clips, and doing either an adipose clip, a ventral clip, or doing some sort of clipping of two different fins in tandem with each other. And a lot of the research was showing that clipping a single fin on landlocked salmon ends up in like better foraging success, better survivability than clipping two fins in tandem. So we ended up trying our best to decide a fin clip rotation that made the least impact to them.
All right, moving down the list, Dwayne Chapman. I'm going to unmute you, Dwayne.
Thanks, Justin. Great presentation. I fish Merrill Creek quite extensively, and I've noticed over the years that what your research is showing that the lake trout size has steadily declined. And me and my fishing buddies seem to think maybe that the introduction of the salmon has done something to that fishery. Obviously a salmon is way faster than a lake trout, and they're eating machines, evidenced by the state record being caught 18 months after it was stocked. So those things can just gobble up all the herring that they can see. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's difficult to ascertain those sort of those relationships there. There's a lot of different factors at play. We're talking about, I think that a lot of, there's a lot of different relationships there. So there's not only the landlocked salmon introductions, but there's also fluctuating, alewife populations there, because alewife are a very notoriously fickle species in terms of their population abundance, and a lot of that can be affected with a ton of different factors, such as like the severity of our winter, the amount of nutrients that are getting pumped into a reservoir, all sorts of different things. So it's really hard to put like an exact I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it. It's hard to put the blame on exactly one thing. Just because there's so many different unknowns, like there's so many different variables that we haven't been able to measure. Particularly one thing that I want to look at in the future that we haven't been able to do recently is doing some more work at understanding the variability in our alewife populations and seeing if there has been a consistent trend or any sort of downturning trend with the alewife population at Merrill Creek at all. So that's just one, like I said, just the variability of factors there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, continuing down the list, Charlie Rayner. I'm going to unmute you, Charlie.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say, I support and appreciate your efforts to encourage, the harvest of the slot lake trout at Round Valley. But we're kind of in an age in general in the fishing community where catch and release is, encouraged across multiple species. People think they're doing a great service to the fishery if they can release them and, somebody else can catch them. But, at Round Valley, is there going to be any educational effort to actually encourage people to, actually keep these slot lake trout and, educate them that actually releasing them is actually harming the fishery, potentially?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in and answer that question. Thank you for it. So if there's any members from Round Valley Trout Association on the call, I'm sure you would remember, for many years, I was in attendance at the annual meetings, and I, reached out directly to members of RVTA, typically 70 or more people, in attendance. So, those folks were integral in working kind of side by side with me over the years to make those recommendations and kind of spread the word. But it's definitely a catch and release culture. And I definitely agree that it's important to have an educational component where people think they're helping a fishery by releasing everything. And when anglers do that, it makes it more difficult for biologists to manage a fishery because you actually lose harvest as a tool. So totally agree with you. You're spot on. And I just want to thank Justin for a lot of great work, a lot of great information. And I want to kind of turn the page to the final section of our meeting tonight. The meeting was scheduled to end at 8:30, but I really want to add extra time for more interaction. So thanks again, Justin. I do appreciate that. At this point, I'm just going to show one more slide. This slide here was just to kind of introduce the topic of the open-ended questions at the end. And here, as stated in the agenda, we're going to talk about considerations to our trout program. And I mentioned that we are in the process of putting together some recommendations to the Fish and Game Council for potential regulation changes. But one of the real obvious things where we feel like we can have a positive impact is with the addition of new trout stocked waters and or the removal of waters that just aren't fishing well or have low participation. So I just wanted to put this out there that one of the things on our radar is to expand the number of locations that we offer stock trout. And some of those considerations where we feel as if we'll say that a larger bang for the buck is by adding more small ponds throughout the state in populated areas where with the real idea there of introducing new people to the sport. That coupled with the buddy license opportunities there for less expensive licenses. So just wanted to kind of put that out there that's one angle of expansion of our program that we're currently looking into, and we do plan to add a suite of waters to the list. But with that, where are the fish going to come from? Because we have limitations in a set number of the amount of trout that we can raise at the Pequest Trout Hatchery. So with that, we're also taking a look at removing certain waters that just seem to get poor turnout from anglers or low success when people do fish. So with that, I'm going to open up the rest of the meeting to question and answer. I'm going to ask all of the staff to turn your cameras on, and Eric's going to moderate that. So anglers, please feel free to raise your hands. And for the rest of the duration of this meeting, we are going to kind of go wide open and entertain your questions.
All right, going back to the list, calling people I haven't called on yet. Edward Janiga. Edward, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead, ask your question.
And you okay there?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah. Certainly, I'd like to support your work done with all the fisheries, and I'm a big Waiwayanda fan, and I support the Atlantic salmon program that you guys have done there. And very interesting to find out about that fin clipping, because now at least the anglers can track as what's surviving and what's not. But it seems a couple questions. Number one, my incidental findings in the salmon that I've harvested are that the alewives are not rarely found in the stomachs of the fish that I'm catching, which very rarely exceed 17 or 18 inches. Not that I'm complaining, but I'm thinking that the alewives may not be a good criteria to use on the lakes that you decide to stock them in, because those fish that get tuned into that are rare. So something like Shepherd's Lake might be an interesting option as far as adding to the landlocked salmon program. And again, I do support the landlocked salmon program. I know there, amongst my friends, it sold licenses to people, 3 people I know that would have never bought a license that wanted to add an Atlantic salmon to the things that they could catch. So anyway, I think that's a great program and I'm all for expanding it if possible.
Yeah, thank you so much for your feedback on all that. I really appreciate it.
Okay, continuing down the list, Rayshawn Lewis, I'm going to unmute you. Rayshawn?
Yes, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Rayshawn.
Hey, this is Rashawn Lewis from the South Jersey Bass Club Association. This question is more towards Chris Smith and Lisa. We miss you guys down here at Basto during our annual, freshwater fisheries and everything. 2 questions. Is there any plans on returning back down to the South Jersey area? My apologies if I missed an earlier call or meeting, but that was one of my first questions. Could you guys speak to that? Over.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if Chris wanted to jump in, but I could say we missed you as well. We were looking for you in the last call because we know you're a regular. But yeah, so one of the things that we did, through COVID, we were kind of shut down with having, the large amount of people, condensed in an area. So we gave this a shot to go virtual. Last year, we were seeing great turnout with like 150, 200 people per call. As of right now, we only have 55 people in attendance, which is still a little higher than we had when it was in person. But the more feedback we hear from anglers about in person versus virtual, it kind of motivates us to maybe get back out there and at least hold some kind of in-person live event. So definitely appreciate hearing that. We like to see your faces as well.
Appreciate that response, Sean, and we miss you guys too. One other question I had, and I don't know if you guys can talk to it. Recently, I had heard that there was a tiger muskie stocking at Cooper River Park. Were you guys involved with that, or did you guys know or have anything to do with that?
Rashawn, the Cooper River's been stocked with muskies for many years. It was part of the program for a number of years, and then it went to a surplus location for a while. I'd have to look and see the numbers to see what recently we've actually put in there. As far as maybe Justin or Craig know more specifically what we put in there in the last couple of years, because I thought we were on surplus for that location. But occasionally, fish do pop up. Some of our other colleagues that work for other agencies, I know there was one that was quite large that was caught during some other sampling a few years ago, 2 years ago, I think it was. It was a big fish. So they are occasionally caught. We know that they come in, all fish come in through that tidal gate on the Cooper River. Everything does. Snakeheads, bass go back and forth, striped bass. So there's always a potential too. The muskie did enter, back into the lake from the river too. So that's kind of the status of what's going on there.
Appreciate that, Chris. And FYI, there was a 9.5-pound snakehead caught over at the Cooper boathouse about 2 days ago. I'll send you the picture of it. But
yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, with the public boat ramp being shut down because of construction project, one of the workers at the boathouse caught it right at the where the scullers, control and go up and down the river. So, but I'll send that picture to you. Over. That's all of my questions, guys. Hey, like I said, I wish I would have jumped on at your first one. Unfortunately, I was on the road, but appreciate you guys doing this here, along with the Central and South Jersey communities here. So continue the great job, and thanks for your continued support. Over.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
really
Rashawn.
appreciate.
We really missed you.
Yeah, we miss you guys too. Trust me.
Hey, and I just wanted to remind you, in case you weren't aware, that you miss hearing Chris talk. It's only a couple clicks away. If you go to our website, we did record that meeting, so you can go back and watch it. He kind of had the microphone for about a half hour, so it's a lot of good stuff. So you can certainly play catch up and go back and watch that.
Thank you, Sean. I will do so.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, continuing on the list, Satish Kamath.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the call and actually really got to know a lot of things. I live in Bud Lake area. I was just curious, why is Bud Lake not a place where you can also stock fishes? The closest I can go is the Musconetcong Lake. But there are a lot of anglers coming here to Bud Lake. I think it will be good if you can even stock fish there as well.
So I'm not sure. I caught. I think the mic cut out a little bit, but we do have a stocking program at Bud Lake for northern pike.
Okay.
So not sure if you're aware of that or not. It's actually a
No.
pretty high density
Okay.
lake. And in case you're wondering, for something like trout, Bud Lake is a little on the large side for that. It would take a lot of the trout resources to make that a desirable fishery.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, I see one more hand raised. We'll go back to Dwayne Chapman. Dwayne, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, thanks
Go ahead,
again.
Dwayne.
Yeah, so I had trouble unmuting there. So first off, congratulations, Lisa, on your retirement. Hopefully it's a nice and long one for you. Get a lot of fishing in. So is there an opportunity for the public to suggest proposed regulations, regulation changes, or is that done in the comment period after Fish and Wildlife releases the proposed changes?
Hi,
Go
Dwayne.
ahead, Lisa. You have a lot of experience with this.
Yeah. Thanks for the kind wishes, Dwayne. I definitely plan to do quite a bit of fishing on my retirement. Be nice to be on the other side of everything.
Yeah, exactly, right.
It's meetings like this, as far as potential regulation changes, you can really do a number of avenues. You can suggest them at meetings like this. You can also email any of the biologists, or even through the main DEP Fish and Wildlife email, and that all gets to the fishery staff. We then bring any recommendations from anglers to the fish committee within the Fish and Game Council. They take those recommendations, very seriously. They go through everything that anglers or any of the federation or organized clubs, suggest. And then the biologists will pull together the data to either, support the change. And then if the fish committee approves it, it goes to the full council. And then it becomes part of like a regular proposal where you have public comment. So you don't want to wait until we do a public comment period, because then it's too late. Chief Krause is working right now on some changes towards for the 2026 fish code. So now's a good time.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking to, because I know Sean's talked about that a couple times now, and I was curious as to how to do that. The one that I'm kind of particularly interested in proposing is, a lot of the shallower lakes up in North Jersey are closed during the trout stocking period, like Lake Musconetcong and Furnace. And as Justin's presentation showed, Musconetcong is a great panfish fishery, and the best time to be out there, unfortunately, is the same time when it's closed. So it's kind of a, it's a give and take. So, I'll be suggesting that. So look for an email from me, Sean, on that one.
Yeah, please send that in directly. I mean, I'd be really happy to, engage in, prolonged conversation about it. We've had some of those conversations right along those lines recently. So, it's great to get support for things like that, and also to get a feel for, how widespread that interest is. So send them in to me and let's start that dialogue. I really appreciate it.
I thank you all for all your efforts making Jersey a fantastic, multi-species fishery. I mean, it's unrivaled around the country. So thanks again.
I don't see any more hands, Sean. So back to you.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I just saw a hand go up and down. We'll entertain another question or two if you guys have them, but as we're waiting to see if that populates or not, I just really wanted to thank everybody, from the staff that put together and really, makes us look good and improves the fisheries. The dedication of the folks that you see on the screen right here is unmatched. And we're doing it for you, the angler out there. We take a lot of pride in putting in the hours of hard work, taking the job very seriously, trying to improve fishing for everybody. And this is a great, opportunity to hear your voice, to share ideas, and that's really what it's all about. So with that said, stay tuned for an email coming back out. Karen's going to send a follow-up email. We might send you some questions about things you liked about the program, things you didn't. We want to know if you want to have more question and answer and just have like an open dialogue the whole time, or do you want to hear, these studies and these presentations? So definitely give us that feedback. We're going to want to cater these meetings towards your interests. So, and with that said, Eric, do you see any other hands raised?
Yeah, I see two more hands. Luke, one more time. Luke, go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Luke.
Hey, thank you for all this, by the way. Just wanted to throw in, I could probably talk for other anglers here. I would love to help out in this community kind of side of things. I really like that the R3 presentation. Looking forward to more like the organizations or the organized events and the more community kind of side to it. So that's really good to see. Also volunteer work. I know that's been that was kind of pulled back with COVID, but ever since I kind of always wanted to try the electrofishing myself. Enjoyed it on the volunteering there. Any updates there?
Yeah, as far as the fishing education programs, you can definitely reach out to Karen. She's very interested in assembling an army of folks just like yourself to get out there and help teach. And then if you want to reach out to me in regards to coming out and either observing or participating in electrofishing, there's a fine line there with safety standards and things like that. But as you can imagine, but definitely reach out, and we'd like to make something like that happen. So thanks for the interest.
Thank you.
I see one more. Jerry Zabardi. Jerry.
Just a quick question. You, for the things you were considering for trout water, and it seemed like you were leaning towards, not leaning towards, but you had mentioned removing and adding. If you remove and then add, I'm sure the fish that you remove will go to where you're going to add. But is there consideration of pulling in trout from other hatcheries? I mean, do you have that capability? I know that everything costs money, but if you had to, could you pull trout from other hatcheries to accommodate new waters, or would you?
Yeah, I'm not really so sure that that's an option. There are issues with moving fish across state boundaries and disease surveillance and things of that nature. And to be clear, like the idea of removing waters is so we're not sending people out to fish waters that are unproductive. And it's not necessary to remove waters just to add them. Because all the fish basically go into the same pot, right? So the 570,000 rainbow trout that we have every spring, we have a complex formula that spreads them out. So we could add more waters, and it would just come from the general pot and pool fish in small, unnoticeable numbers, from across the state. So we don't really, it's not a one-for-one swap that if we drop a lake and we add another one, that's where those fish go. Right. But it does help, reduce the impact of the program. For example, if we were to add, a whole bunch of new waters, by default, you would have to see decreased numbers elsewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned with. I mean, if you start adding new waters, you're going to decrease. Obviously, you'd have to pull from here, pull from there, pull from there. But I was wondering if it got to the point where the decrease would be noticeable in the other waters to accommodate the new waters.
Yeah, well, and one other thing to mention, and this is probably a nuance, maybe even a little too detailed, but over the years, in the last decade or so, we've actually removed more waters than trout waters. So in a way, all of our waters right now are getting stocked with a little bit more
Right.
than they used to. It's
Right.
a slight shift, maybe not even noticeable.
Right. Agreed. Okay. I was just curious.
but-
I was just curious if that out of state was an option, but I guess with all the stuff that requires healthy fish, it's not really an option.
Yeah, we feel as if we have enough to go around, and it's more about maximizing the use of the ones we have.
Yeah. Okay.
And with that said, you know, there's a lot of talk too about like if we're going to add some small ponds, maybe that's in a lesser capacity. Like maybe we're only stocking them for opening day, and maybe they're not going to be repeated, you know, 3
Yeah,
and 4
4 or
times.
5 or every week or stuff like that. Okay, good.
Yep.
Well, listen, thanks a lot for all the work. I really enjoy the things that I get to do as far as fishing. So again, thanks.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'd like to call this meeting to an end. We hope to see you in the future. Thanks for spending your night with us, and tight lines. Have a good one.
Good night.